Hello and welcome back to the Sub Club here on the Sports Money Network. I am Subhuman Gaucho, and we are going to get into some English Premier League here for the weekend. Saturday, 22nd of February. This one goes down 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've got the Eagles of Crystal Palace traveling to Craven Cottage to take on Fulham in a London derby here. Fulham coming in about a half a goal favorites, money line plus 105. The comeback on Crystal Palace plus 275. Total set at over 2.5. Now, both these teams, they come into this contest in good form. Both teams in the league, 3 wins and 2 losses in their last 5 games. Crystal Palace has had a bit of a rough season. They sit 13th in the table, but as that form suggests, they have been cooking lately. A lot of that has come down to the very productive French national, Jean-Philippe Mateta. He scored 5 goals in his last 3 Premier League away games, 2 braces in that span. Very, very impressive. If he can make it 4 for 4, he'll be the first player in Palace history to score in 4 straight Premier League road games. Interesting narrative there. It might be worth a sprinkle. I'll leave that for you to decide. Haven't even looked at the numbers on him to score yet. All that said, Fulham, they have been very good this season. Sit 8th in the table. To be honest, I think they could be higher. I think they're a little bit unlucky to sit 8th rather than, say, 7th or 6th. Marco Silva, the Fulham boss, has had some really great wins very, very recently, especially last week. Unfortunately, we had Nottingham Forest on the spread plus a quarter of a goal against this Fulham side. Ended up being a Fulham 2-1 victory right here at Craven Cottage. The prior English Premier League match, they got the better of Newcastle, who at the time had won 10 of their last 11 games. So 2 high-flying teams Fulham had taken out back-to-back. And that's very interesting. I think this matchup has some parallels to that matchup between Fulham and Nottingham Forest. We talked a lot about how Nottingham Forest, a very low possession team, and you could say the same of Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, bottom 4 in possession. So I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw last week, which is to say Fulham with a lot of the ball, Fulham doing more of the attacking. Fulham, the best team in the league when it comes to playing in crosses, most crosses per 90. I think we're going to see a lot of that again. So what I want to do here is kind of get into some of the underlying numbers that kind of got me on one side rather than the other, right? Now, probably heard me say it a lot these last couple of weeks, but expected goals per 90, right? This is a big number that can kind of get you started in one direction or another. For those that maybe aren't too familiar with looking at some of these underlying numbers in soccer, expected goals or XG, it's just a measure of the quality of a chance, right? A quality of a shot or a header, so on. And it's basically just calculated by looking at the likelihood that that chance will be scored by using all of the information on similar shots in the past, right? So if you're shooting a ball from 2 feet out, well, it's going to be a very high XG. If you're shooting a ball from 30 yards out, it's going to be a very low XG. It's a ratio 0 to 1, 1 being 100%, 0 being 0%. If you're shooting from 30 yards out, it's going to be a very low quality chance. It might be a 0.01 XG. If you've got a penalty kick, for example, it's going to be a very high XG. It's going to be over 0.9 probably. So all that said, these two teams, they're kind of middling when it comes to offensive generation. In terms of XG generated per 90, Palace 11th in the league, Fulham 10th. So there's not a whole lot to separate them offensively. But there is a difference in their defensive quality. Fulham sit top 3 in the league in terms of XG conceded, the amount of expected goals that they give up. Palace, decent, but not quite so good. They sit 8th in the league in XG conceded. Now, what's interesting about this is you look at the number of goals that they have actually conceded. Palace is actually slightly better than Fulham. Palace have allowed 32 goals. Fulham have allowed 33. Now, reason XG is important and insightful here is while there's not much of a difference in their goals conceded, that XG number gives you the sense that Palace have actually been a little bit lucky to only concede 32 goals, while Fulham, they've been a little bit unfortunate to concede 33. You could very well see a bigger gap there. So that gives you an idea of XG, but I think when you dig in a little bit more, you get an even better picture here. So one way to look at XG more closely is you take out the penalties, right? Penalties are one of the most capricious things in all of soccer. They can just happen from a flagrant hand or just some chance encounter. So if you look at the expected goals, or pardon me, the non-penalty expected goals per 90, well, now that defensive edge in terms of Fulham gets even better here. Non-penalty expected goals per 90, Fulham's in the top 4. While Palace's expected goals per 90 at number 8 was in the top 10, you look at their non-penalty expected goals per 90, and they dropped well into that bottom half of the league. So that leads me to believe that Fulham is going to start more and more going on a run here. They've already started it. We talked about them beating Forest and Newcastle, 2 very, very difficult teams. So I want to be with Fulham here. And I think you look at some other statistics, it gets you even more bullish on that Fulham side. Some of the statistics that Fulham, there's a number that they are top 5 in the league in some of these defensive categories, but 2 relevant ones here. Shots allowed per 90. They're top 4. Big scoring and chances allowed per 90. They are top 2. So why is this relevant? Well, there's only 2 offensive categories in which Palace is in the top half of the league, and they happen to be shots per 90 and big scoring chances per 90. So Fulham match up in a way where they can shut down that which Palace is best at. That's going to lead me to Fulham. And one last thing, I mentioned this being a London derby. Well, get this. Fulham's last London derby, 3-2 defeat to West Ham. Now, that's a bad look. West Ham hasn't been great this year. But you look at that game, and Fulham won the expected goals battle by a pretty large margin. So, again, Fulham a little bit unlucky in that game. But prior to that, Fulham unbeaten in their 10 previous London derbies. And it gets even better when you look at the London derbies that take place at Craven Cottage. At Craven Cottage, Fulham's home stadium, they've gone 7 straight undefeated. And if that's not enough for you, you take a look at Palace. 14 straight London derbies on the road, just 1 victory. So when it comes to these big rivalry matches, Fulham steps up to the plate and Crystal Palace tends to melt. I got to be with Fulham here. I think they get the victory. Give me a 2-1, 2-0. Those are my scoreline predictions. All that said, thank you for coming by. Hit the like, subscribe, and we will see you this evening on the Sports Money Network for the big one, USA versus Canada, to determine the 4 Nations champion. Hope to see everybody there. See ya.